all of us forgot to start our timers. So it happens, it can happen. Just, start one yourself just in case the students may forget. And so since you are keeping track of time, it is also good to write it down. They'll be taking preparation time throughout the round. So they'll be saying, before my next speech, can I take a minute of preparation time, 30 seconds? Just make sure you write down the end result of what that was. If they have a minute 30 left, if they have a minute 15 left, just write that down because, they'll tell you, okay, I'm done, and then they'll forget how much time they had left. And if no one has a record of it, you might end up in a situation giving someone too much preparation time or giving them too little. You definitely want to make sure you're being fair. So just keep a running note. Even if you have them keep track of their time, just write down, what they had left in case anyone forgets. Yes.
Yeah, question. I noticed this before is when one side of this debater claim they will want 45 seconds for the precator, actually they use 30 seconds. We have this 15 seconds to give back to them, what considered to use?
You give that back to them. So once you start judging kind of higher levels of debate, they'll stop asking you for specific times. They'll just take it. They'll say, I'll take preparation time. And that's usually because they're timing themselves. Younger debaters, you'll see, ask for specific times. They'll say, can I get 30 seconds? Can I get 45 seconds? That's probably because we as coaches have told them how much time they should be taking, and they are asking you as a judge to keep track of that time. If you are doing that, you don't have to stop them at that time. They can take as much or as little prep time as they want to take in the debate. You would just tell them, if they say, can I take 30 seconds, just let them know, hey, that's 30 seconds. You can keep going if you want. Stop. It's up to you. But they have, and like I said, we'll get to the format, they have 2 minutes total of preparation time, and they can use as much or as little of that as they feel like they need. So the next thing is, during the debate, you want to make sure you're taking notes. And you don't have to take like the most detailed notes, just things you want to keep in mind about the debate. If someone says something that you thought was very powerful and you thought was a good argument, just write it down. That way you can keep a record of it. So when you're deciding after the round, you can see, okay, this was said, the opponent didn't respond to that. I think that's a solid argument. I want to vote on that. That's totally up to you because judging is completely subjective, totally up to what you thought, how you were persuaded, what you thought were good arguments and what you thought were bad arguments. That's up to you. And so because of that, it's best for you to write down what you thought as you think it, because in the debate, there'll be a lot of arguments. The opponent's going to say a lot. Other students are going to say a lot, and you're going to probably forget some things that were said at the beginning of the debate, which is okay. As long as you write it down, you'll have a record of it so that you can make a fair decision based on what happened in that debate is a good idea. Yes?
So are you judging them based on the content of what they say, or based on how they present and make arguments?
Great question. So both, essentially. You're judging them on argumentation, and you're also judging them on persuasiveness or persuasive value of their arguments. And that, again, is up to you to decide what you found persuasive, what you thought was, good speaking, things like that. But there's going to be a space on that form for you to write down their speaker points. And just because someone was a strong speaker does not necessarily mean that they had the winning arguments. And so sometimes you can say the team who won were not the best speakers, and sometimes you can say the team who won were phenomenal speakers and also won the debate. So you can either break it up or you could keep it together. That's totally up to you. I know when I judge, just because of the way I was taught debate and how I debated, argumentation means the most to me. So I will take someone being not the best speaker if I feel like they were making good arguments and maybe their opponent didn't respond to those arguments effectively. Then I would say the team who maybe weren't the best speakers but had the stronger arguments won that debate. And that's my personal opinion. Some people totally feel that if you are a strong speaker, your argument's not the most important. If you're persuading me, then I will vote for you that way. So that, again, depends on you. I think the best way to look at it, if you're trying to decide which one is more important to you, most of us watch the presidential debates. If you felt that someone's demeanor made you not want to believe them or not really want to vote for them, then you're probably someone who votes on their speaking ability and how well they're speaking, their presentation, things like that. If you were more focused on the facts, the statistics that were being said, things like that, you're probably someone who would lean more to argumentation. So again, for me, I was fact-checking the entire debate the whole time because, again, argumentation is what's really important to me, and who was stating the correct facts and things like that. So it really kind of breaks up based on what you find to be important. So the next thing is that in these debates, there is no tie. You cannot tie the debate. There cannot be two winners. There must be a winner and there must be a loser in the debate. Some debates will be very good and they will be very hard to decide. But that is your task as a judge, to sit down and really figure out who did the better debating and why you feel that way. And like I said, it can be very close. You can have two teams that had very, very good points at the end of the day. However, I would say that if it's a really good debate, you'll know who won, because they'll make it very clear to you that they won the debate, and by the end you'll have a clear-cut winner. But sometimes debates can be so close that it's very difficult. You still cannot make a tie. You must pick a winner in that debate. That's how they all have to go. Just like, March Madness happens, there has to be a winner. We can't leave with two winners, because then we can't have the rest of the competition with two teams winning in a single round. After you kind of decide who won the debate, you will start filling out this thing called a ballot. And a ballot is essentially a form that you fill out. It'll be online that says this is who you're judging. So have the names of the 4 students that you're judging. Again, most of them will not be Potomac participants. They'll be from other schools, other clubs, things like that. And once you see this form, it's actually very intuitive and very straightforward. It'll ask you who you voted for. The pro will be the people who are supporting the resolution, and the con will be the people who are negating the resolution or against it. And you'll have to pick one of those sides. You'll just type down, I voted pro, vote con. After you do that, then you go to next to their names. Next to their names, there'll be a little white bubble next to all 4 of them. And in that bubble, you will be asked to rank them on speaker points. And there is a range for speaker points. And that range is 25 to 30 points. 30 being the best speaker you could ever imagine, as in this person should be a president with how well they speak. 25 being you probably said something incredibly offensive, or you didn't speak at all. Right? So 25s are typically not given, because that's a very bad speech. If you ever give anyone a 25, it's because they were very bad in the debate, both morally, ethically, all those things. So we typically don't give 25s. You want to maybe stay in the 26 range for really low speaker points. 30, again, very high. 30s are not very common. I think in my debate career, that was 8 years, I probably got 3 or 4 30s. And I myself would say those are probably not warranted. So again, 30s are incredibly rare. So I would stay away from those. 26 to 29 is typically where you want to stay. Now you might say, then why'd you tell us these numbers? Because these numbers are still important. If you feel someone did deserve a 30, you give them a 30. If you feel like they really did deserve a 25, you give a 25. Now, if they get a 25, if any of our students get 25s, I know when I see that result, I immediately come talk to them and say, what happened? Or I look on that ballot for the next section at the bottom, which is called your RFD, which is your reason for decision, why you decided the way you did. If I ever gave someone a 25, I definitely wrote about it down here. If I don't give them a 25, I still write about what they did. And this is where you can tell them how you felt about their presentation, how you felt about their arguments, things you think they can do better, things you want them to work on specifically. This is where you can see that, because again, after the round, you maybe have 5 minutes to talk to them before the next team's going to come rushing in to do their debate. That's not a lot of time to discuss an entire 30 to 45 minutes of debating. And so this section is where you would just type it down very quickly. They get access to these notes after the competition, so that after it's over, they can see this. That is for your safety, so that they don't come hunting you down about why you voted against them if they see that. So that's why we don't release this till the end. So as parents, your students may be talking about how they wish they could see their results from the debate during round 3 or round 4. That's why we don't do that, to protect judges, because the students will definitely hunt you down and ask you a ton of questions, and you're probably trying to get to your next debate to judge. So again, they won't see this to the end. But if you want to tell them more, something I always do is I tell the students, especially if we're pushed for time and they're rushing in with the next debate, I'll say, hey, find me after this. I'll be happy to talk to you and let you know what I thought. That's a great way of, 1, decreasing the amount you have to type here, but 2, also decreasing the amount you have to talk in between the debates so that you can move those things along a little bit more smoothly.
so do they
Yes.
don't see their score until later, or you tell them
Yes.
right away?
So that's totally up to you. You can do what we call disclosing, which means you tell them who won or lost. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you don't have to do it. So you don't have to tell them who won or lost. However, you should always give them feedback. Try your hardest to. Again, if you are pushed for time, crunched for time, it's okay if you can't. Just tell them to find you after. You'd be happy to give them some information. But try your best to always give them feedback, even if you don't tell them who won or lost. What I will say is if you don't tell them who won or lost and you give them feedback, the entire time they're listening to you, they're fishing for hints to who won or who lost. So keep that in mind, that if you don't tell them, they're not really listening to you, they're listening to who you talk about the most to see like that person probably lost. So keep that in mind if you decide not to tell them. I tell them, unless they are younger, if they're like elementary school, maybe younger middle school, I typically won't tell them because some of what I talked about earlier in terms of them feeling discouraged, not wanting to continue, generally happens to the younger kids a lot more. If it's high school, they've probably debated a year or two or so they're used to it. You can tell them who won or lost. But the younger students, I typically just keep it to the end. And some tournaments will actually use the website to tell them as the tournament goes on. So you don't actually have to. They'll just find out on their own, probably if you judge them round 1, they'll probably find out at the end of round 2 how you voted. So you have, by no means, you're not obligated to tell them who won or lost. But again, if you want to, that is totally fine. Yes?
A couple points. From my previous observation is some of the tournaments, the director will advise the judge not to tell the debater the result right after the debate. I mean, I guess it depends on the director, but some of the debate I went to, they did say that, just don't tell them right after.
Yes, some competitions have no disclosure rules, which means you do not tell them who won or lost. The main reason for that is to prevent drawn-out RFDs where the judge is talking to them for 10 minutes and holding up the competition. That's the main reason I'd say for it. But if the competition says no disclosing, Alyssa would definitely tell you in the email not to do it, and so just don't do it at that point. Just give them the feedback, but don't tell them who won or lost.
The other point is about the point system. I saw the ballot usually gave the range from 20 to 30. What they're suggesting is don't give the lower points close to like 22, 23, or even lower, but not say 25 is really, really bad. So I just want to get a feeling from your recommendation, is 25 really that bad, or it's even lower going to be considered something bad?
25 is really bad, especially because the tournament will let you know the speaker point ranges if they're ever different than this. Most public point tournaments will be this range here. So if they're ever different, they'll definitely let you know. But 25 is really bad. I would say I got a 25 one time in my career, and that was unfortunately from a judge who didn't understand the point system, and I had to deal with having a 25.
So then actually judge have to deal with a very narrow range from 26
yes.
to 29.
So what's actually beneficial is that we've noticed that over the years. And so some tournaments allow you to do 0.5 increments. So you can do 26.5, 27, 27.5, 28. So kind of stretch it out a little bit. The speaker points I generally give, if I'm judging, is if you were, I thought, just not a very good speaker, like maybe you didn't take up all your speech time, if you didn't really make a lot of arguments or you were very repetitive, I generally will stop at like a 26.5. Like I don't go much lower than that. For high speaker points, 28.5 is typically where I stay for the highest, so 28.5 is where I am. I know judges who give 29s like they're candy. It really just depends on the judge, and that's why I said this is subjective. Some people giving 29s is much easier than other people. And to balance that out at a competition, what happens when they're calculating speaker points to figure out who's the top speaker, second speaker, third speaker, is they drop your highest point and your lowest point to account for judges who may be on the lower side of points, and for judges who we call speaker point fairies, because they just kind of float around giving everyone great points that they may or may not actually deserve. So they counter those out by saying, let's say you did get 130 and you got 125, both of those get canceled out to get your average points. So even if you feel like you might make a mistake and give someone too high of a point, typically it gets fixed in the end, so it's okay. One more thing I want to talk about in terms of what you'll be doing while you're actually judging is that I already talked about how you should not use your personal bias. You should try your best in this RFD section to give them as much detailed feedback as possible, because this is what helps them learn. This is something that we as coaches can't necessarily do all the time. We can't watch all of our students in every single debate. We just can't be in multiple places at once, obviously. And this is our way as coaches of knowing what they need to work on, because you essentially are the coach in that debate. You're telling them how to best persuade you. You're telling them what they should have done, things like that. This is how we as coaches can work with students and get individualized ways of helping them become better communicators and better debaters, is through this feedback here. So we ask that you do take the time to fill it out as detailed as possible. Again, crunch for time, we totally understand, because the competition running smoothly and on time is a priority. But type as much as you can, because again, that comes back to coaches, obviously not us, but other coaches, and helps them, really make sure the students are growing. Yes.
So you've mentioned a couple of times about typing or forms or whatever. Are we bringing our own?
It'll be completely online, which is the last section. Actually, it's the next section of this, so that's fine. It'll be online. We're going to talk about a website that all this on. As long as you bring a phone or a tablet, you'll have access to it.
Okay, but we have to bring our own device.
Yes, that you do, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How much time you have doing this comments?
Typically 2 to 5 minutes. After that, you'll probably have some angry person coming in your room telling you to stop and start the next debate, because they just want the debate to keep moving.
So if there are 2 points within one round, and in between they have a 5 minutes break?
No, the next debate actually is supposed to start immediately, but typically there's a little bit of time as the students are packing up to give them some feedback before they exit the room. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is using this website called tabroom.com. So if you would like to do this on your phone, you can. I would not trust the Wi-Fi here. The students regularly complain about it, which I don't mind, because I don't want them playing games anyway. So I would use your data if you can, because the Wi-Fi here is not the fastest. So you would go to this website, which is www.tabroom.com. I believe Alyssa sent out an email about how to create an account on this website. Those of you going to Georgetown, she's definitely sent the email about those of you who don't have an account. If you do not have an account set up and you are judging at Georgetown for your student, we're going to walk through it here, but if you're having any issues, I want to make sure you're set up before you leave this room, because we have to make sure all of our judges have accounts and are linked and things like that before we even get to the competition. I believe it's actually due tomorrow. So I want to make sure you're all connected before you leave this room. If you're not going to Georgetown, that's okay. There's definitely time to get that figured out, but I definitely make sure that Georgetown judges get that resolved before they go. So when you go